Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to another live stream episode. Hey, it's great to see you. And yeah, today we're talking about a really interesting topic that I try to get my head around the last couple of weeks. Um, and yeah, that's really something that I'm honestly struggling with a lot currently in my home lab. I try to get my head around automation and how to avoid doing things manually in a home lab. And I thought it might be interesting to address a question or a problem that I observed when it comes to automation in a home lab, which is about actually questioning the whole right of existence of automation in a home lab and the overall approach. So, how useful is that really? Do you actually need automation in a home lab, or is it something that is maybe nice to have? And yeah, you might try it out if you want, but it's not really necessary for running a home lab. And yeah, that's what we're trying to address in this live stream. I hope you're ready for it. And yeah, as always, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I hope I can address some of those questions here during the live stream. If I don't, I'm sorry, because I got a lot of feedback during all those live streams. But hey, I mean, I'm open to continue the discussion with you guys on Discord if you want. So if you want, you can send me a message. Unfortunately, I couldn't answer all of the response all of the questions that people sent me on Discord, because sometimes they're really long messages, and sometimes when I start my workday, I have so much on my plate that from time to time, I try to answer everybody, but it's sometimes taking a bit long until I can respond to each and every question. But hey, I try to keep up with it. So, and don't feel hesitated to reach out to me at any time if you like. And especially that is true, of course, for all the members in our community. So thanks again, all the members in the Patreon program. You guys are really the best. And honestly, this program is really a great opportunity to support all the free tutorials, the live stream, and everything. So if you consider supporting me and showing your appreciation for all of the work that I do, then check out my Patreon program. You will find a link in the description. And at some point, I'm planning to make some exclusive videos on Patreon. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to pay for it. So, by the way, if you're not aware, we have a free tier on the Patreon program, so you don't need to pay any money. You can just join and keep up with that. And whenever I plan to make a Patreon exclusive video, maybe a more behind the scenes video or a walkthrough about some topics that might not be so successful for YouTube, I'm going to release it on Patreon for everyone in the free member tiers as well. So yeah, there's really no harm in actually signing up and just keeping up with the stuff that I do on YouTube and in my home lab. So consider joining the free tier on Patreon. And if you want to support me and upgrade to some of the higher tiers, that would be really amazing. But don't feel pushed by me to do that. I just want to highlight it here on the live streams. And yeah, thanks everybody for jumping in. I'm seeing so many familiar names here. So thanks, Florian. Moin from Germany. Moin, moin. As we say in Germany. Someone from Italy, Brian. That's amazing. Greetings from Montreal, Canada, from Peter. Oh, cool. Really amazing. And the Bearded IT Dad. Hey, good to see you, man. I know you're also having a YouTube channel, by the way. So check out the Bearded IT Dad. I'm sorry, I sometimes have problems with pronunciation. But anyway, I mean, check out his channel. It's pretty cool. So if you want to learn about how to get into IT, especially professional IT, and make it a living and make a career, quick shout out to your channel, man. So yeah, check it out. Notes Michael said bought free MS01 from Minis forum to replace my current server. Oh, really cool. They're saying that automation are overkill for home lab. Well, I'm not saying this. At least I'm starting to get into the discussion. So I'm not saying like, hey, let's go through this live stream. So I will clarify why I even came up with this topic and what it actually means, what I've automated in my home lab just recently, what are some of the projects that I'm planning for the future, and yeah, you probably might see the one or another tool in here that you might be familiar with. And we have a little more time to go in a bit more depth into, talking about those different solutions. And I'm going to explain to you in which way I'm using all those automation tools in my home lab. And whether it's actually making sense at all. So, really, that's one question I ask myself. But hey, let's get into it. Thanks everybody for jumping in, and let's get started with the topic. So I've made some notes for this live stream. Mr. Hey aus dem Schwarzwald. Hey, good to see you. By the way, I've lived there in Schwarzwald a few years ago. Actually, it was a really nice place in Germany. So probably one of the best places to live in Germany. So really cool. Okay, let's get into the topic. So what is automation in IT? Because automation is really, for me personally, it's not a single topic. Automation in IT means so many different things, and we could dive into all those different areas and specific aspects of automation in IT, why it is useful and so on. And but it's mainly just automation at its core just means avoid doing things manually. So that means like whatever you're doing, like if it's administrative tasks or provisioning and installing stuff in IT, setting up servers, setting up accounts. Those you probably know that if you have been working in the administrative area of IT or in the operations field in IT, you probably know there's a lot of shit that you have to do on a day-to-day basis, right? And this is really not like the complicated stuff that you probably would hear from everybody. Like developers are always talking about CI/CD and provisioning and Kubernetes container orchestration stuff. But if I try to remind myself of the most annoying tasks in IT, it's literally just creating new users, resetting passwords because users always forget their passwords and stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that we have to do manually, and those things you probably have seen some people try to have some checklists in their documentation settings. Like, so for example, when I'm creating a new user, I need to create a password for it. I need to set up an email account on the Exchange server. I might also add this user to this, and these specific groups. And I also might add a new folder in a directory for this user or whatsoever. Like all these different systems that are somehow interconnected in IT, you always need to do the same kind of stuff for like those day-to-day tasks that you do. And automation aims at helping you avoid doing those annoying repetitive tasks and getting rid of all those boring stuff that we have to do in IT. Obviously, you can't automate everything, and we might go into some of those details later. But actually, automation, when I'm thinking about it, it's for me, it is such an interesting and exciting topic because I'm so lazy. Right? So this is the honest truth that I can tell you. I'm just a lazy dude and I hate to do things over and over again. I'm always somebody, you might know me, I'm a creative person. I always like to jump into new things and get excited about new topics and stuff, and I just hate to do the same shit over and over again. So that's why I'm personally so excited about automation in IT. But when we take a look at this from a professional perspective, of course, this also has many more benefits in just aside avoid doing things manually. It's also more like about consistency, like keeping your stuff consistent. For example, if you're having a checklist, you're creating a new user, you have to go through all of these different checks and things. You might forget something, or you might add a typo somewhere. Somebody else, you might be on vacation, and somebody else have to do the work that you do, and he might not do the same stuff that you're doing. So automation also makes sure it's always consistent, because if you don't have to do those things over and over again, it's also making sure that those steps are always the same. Like if you're keeping your environment consistent, it's also important. And of course, it allows you in professional IT to scale up your infrastructure and environment. For example, if you're installing an Ubuntu server and you know exactly, if I'm installing an Ubuntu server, I have to do this, and that, and you have automated this stuff, nothing is holding you back from actually executing this task like 1,000 times and install 1,000 different servers. So those are like the three essential things for me personally. It comes to efficiency, avoid doing repetitive tasks, consistency, and scalability, to scale your infrastructure or your workflows, whatever it is that you want to automate, and yeah, make it easier for a single person to do multiple things at once, or actually avoid doing those things and let computers and machines actually do that for you. Yeah, Christoph, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's probably not just for the lazy dudes, right? I mean, it's for the lazy ones, really amazing, but it's also, just like I said, it has many more benefits to professional IT. And yeah, that's obviously the reason why we use it in professional IT. However, once I started to adopt the spirit of automating like each and everything that I could do in my home lab, I came up with a question, if that's really necessary, and how can you make the best use of automation in a home lab? Because if we talk about a home lab, yeah, and all those benefits that I've just said about efficiency, consistency, and scalability, they don't really matter in a home lab, right? If you're really thinking about it, you could argue that it's sometimes annoying to do things manually. But at the end of the day, the tasks that you're doing in a home lab, it's usually you're not creating users on a day-to-day basis. You're not installing updates like each and every day, or you're not installing a new server like 1,000 times, right? So you are really in a home lab. All the tasks that you're doing are much more, I would say, like on a smaller scale. So scalability is not really like a goal when it comes to home labs. At least it is not for me, right? If I'm installing a server, I probably need to do that like 2 or 3 times. But how much time does it really saves me to invest like multiple hours understanding an automation tool? And when I need to install a new server, I'm probably just installing a new server like 2 or 3 times in a home lab, and that's fine. And also when it comes to consistency, like keeping things the same, you can see where this might get a problem in a home lab, because in a home lab, I'm not sure if your home labs are the same like mine, but my home lab is everything, but it's not consistent. So I'm always like changing things. I'm always trying out new settings, new tasks, and then it really doesn't matter so much if all the servers have a consistent configuration when I'm changing things often and I'm trying out different things. So that's really the reason why I started to ask myself, so am I just wasting my time learning those automation tools? And yeah, so wouldn't it be just easier to install a new Ubuntu server, and maybe like it takes like 10, 15 minutes to install a new server? Isn't that much more efficient than investing like 5, 6 hours understanding Ansible and writing this Ansible playbook that does literally this thing for me? The same with like Kubernetes clusters. How often do you install Kubernetes clusters in a home lab? I mean, I can understand why professional IT does want to automate those deployments. For example, if you're a cloud vendor and you have new customers on a day-to-day basis and they want to set up Kubernetes environments, of course, you don't go and do that for each and every customer yourself. You're writing an automation script that does the installation, does the provisioning, and all of that shit. But in a home lab, how often did you install a Kubernetes cluster? Maybe like 1 time, 2 times, 3 times? If you're breaking things a lot, just like me, probably 5, 6 times. But yeah, what's the reason why you should ever care about automation in a home lab? And I would definitely say, like, for most of the people, if you just want to have a straight forward way and you're not caring about those professional items in IT, you just want to self-host a few applications and you just want to run your small NAS environment and deploy a few containers and yeah, the privacy and personal cloud storage, that's probably everything you're caring about. It might be just a complete waste of time to dig into like automation tools like Terraform, Ansible, and all of that stuff. And you're fine with not automating anything in your home lab. Might be true. I got a lot of messages on Twitter/X, right, from a bunch of people that's saying like, I don't do automation in my home lab. Some did some scripting. Some others say, yeah, I would love to do, but I haven't done it. Maybe because, yeah, some people don't really have any natural interest in automating that stuff because it doesn't benefit them, right? So that's really the question what I've tried to come up with, and I'm trying to get an answer for me personally. How much of this stuff do I actually automate in my home lab, and what things do I do manually? Maybe it's not it's not black and white, like you automate everything or you automate nothing. Maybe it's somewhere in between, right? So you need to find out for yourself. So what exactly do you automate, and what type of tasks do you still continue doing manually? So those type of questions are always like, flowing around in my brain, and I'm trying to answer them. But yeah, let's get into some of the details here and talk about automation. I still feel like automation in a home lab still has a use case. It still is useful in some areas. And I want to explain very specifically what helped me, or where I feel like, okay, this was a complete waste of time. For example, installing or provisioning a Kubernetes cluster automatically. That would be a complete waste of time, because I don't need like 10, 20 Kubernetes clusters, and I'm not damaging my Kubernetes clusters each and every week where I need to deploy another one. At least, I mean, that was in the first days playing around with Kubernetes. But now my setup is pretty consistent, and it's running for over a year now, fully stable, without any issues. So I'm really glad I figured out how to actually maintain running a Kubernetes cluster at home. So investing some time into writing automation stuff for deploying Kubernetes would be a waste of time for me, right? So yeah, let's get into some of the details here. Just reading some of your messages here. A lot of good comments here in the chat, by the way. Home labs are the ultimate non-production environment. Yeah, that's absolutely true, Krimlon. Yeah, that's actually how I see home labs. I don't see home labs as a production environment. You probably know that. I've said it a couple of times, and I will continue saying this. Your home lab is not a production environment, hence you should not treat it as such. Yeah, right. We had that topic when we talked about ECC memory, where I said, like, you don't need ECC memory in a home lab because it's not a production environment, so don't care about this, right? And the same is also with home labs, with automation in a home lab, sorry. Okay, have a playground to fool around with new shit. Once you're happy with it, automate it and deploy it on production, or throw it away. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, that is probably where I feel like this is the most benefit. Like, if you're seeing your home lab as a playground where you can play around with automation stuff, and when you confirm, it's working, it's great, I can start deploying this on production environments. But I would also say, like, for some of the people that are not managing production environments, for example, me, I'm not an administrator. You probably know, I'm not administrating any type of IT environment besides my home lab. Really nothing. So I have no responsibility for any of the production systems at Sophos. I mean, I'm not really sad about this, to be honest. So what can I say? Yeah, I'm really happy that when I can go on vacation, I am on vacation, and nobody calls me when something does not work. So I'm really happy about it. But of course, if you're managing a home lab and you don't have any idea if what you're actually doing is the right way you would use it in a production environment, because you have not so much experience with that, well, sometimes it could be a problem. But I still believe, like, even though I don't use my automation scripts and deploy them on a production environment, I still believe they have some value for me, even just in a home lab, just in a playground situation. And I will tell you a few examples where I feel this is really beneficial, and what I think you guys should start automating your stuff in a home lab, even though you're not managing production environments and you're not into like professional IT environments and so on. You're just hosting your own small server. I still would say there are areas that are worth automating in a home lab, and that's exactly what I've covered in the videos before, but I will continue to cover them in upcoming videos, because there are a lot of things currently going on in my home lab. I'm trying out a bunch of different tools and practices, and yeah, that's gonna be a huge topic, or one of the next videos. All right. AWX is a very nice graphical user interface for Ansible. Yeah, that honestly, I never played around with AWX because I was a bit like how can I say this? When I started to look at the official documentation and getting started guides from Red Hat about AWX, I just felt like, okay, so this doesn't really make sense to me. It doesn't. They were saying things like, okay, you can self-host it, but there are like these and these and these and these things that you should take care of. And actually, by the way, you should also run this in a production environment with these type of settings. And that was a bit where I say, okay, this might be just an overkill. I just want to do some Ansible scripts. And ultimately, what I wanted to do is schedule Ansible playbooks, right? So I wanted to, for example, the only use case that I personally had was running an Ansible playbook that will do two things here. First, update my Ubuntu apt packages. And the second is cleaning old Docker images from my servers. These are the two use cases I could actually think about. That I wanted to have a system that on a scheduled trigger, so recurrently executes those Ansible playbooks. And for that, I would never just set up such a tool like AWX. It's just like, it's a complete waste of time, right? So that's why I've searched for a simpler solution, right? Because I wanted to execute those two Ansible playbooks, and that's exactly where I started to play around with Semaphore. By the way, there's some really interesting development happening on Semaphore right now. So I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but once I started to look at this website again, they renamed Ansible Semaphore to, they are just calling it Semaphore UI now. And they added a bunch of interesting other features, like they have a feature to automate or orchestrate Terraform as well. So they are not just doing Ansible, and they also have the ability to run shell scripts. That's kind of an interesting topic. We might have a look at this, but it requires a license. So you need to pay like $5 a month to have this additional license. Otherwise, in the community version, you can just use Semaphore for running Ansible scripts. And if you're paying a license, you can also add Terraform and Bash support for it. So honestly, I'm not sure if that's the right way to develop a product or to market a product. But hey, I have no idea. I mean, it's like, yeah, maybe we'll take a look at this. But Semaphore, that was like the first tool that helped me to run my Ansible playbooks in a scheduled way, so I don't have to execute them locally from my workstation. And now I just recently went a different route and used another automation tool that is called Castra. But we will come to Castra in a couple of minutes here. And that's going to be one of the huge new tools that I'm adopting in my Homelab because of a bunch of different reasons. But let's get into that. Yeah, Christoph just said like it's normal for any software by Red Hat. Overly complex and bloated, yeah. I have no idea about the bloated fact, but I can literally say, yeah, sometimes it's really overcomplicated. I mean, if I just had a look at the OpenShift documentation as well, and was really a bit like worried if there's like, is that something I want to get into? I mean, it's like interesting, but how much time do I have to dedicate in order to figure out how to use OpenShift? And in the end, I will still do Kubernetes, so why the hell should I care? The same is also true for any other of the Red Hat projects. I mean, I can't tell anything about the distributions itself because I never used them. But yeah, Ansible, sometimes it's the same. Ansible is a great tool. By the way, let's get into Ansible. Let's talk about specific automation tools that you can use. And because I believe there are different types of automation tasks and there are different types of tools that serves like this specific use case or that are interesting for specific use cases. Just a second, I need to drink something because I'm just talking and talking and talking. Sometimes I need something to drink. All right. Okay, great. So, by the way, a lot of great stuff from you guys in the chat. So you're absolutely aware of all the different types of tools that we're talking about. I would say like the first steps how you can automate stuff, and I'm not doing this enough, right? That would be scripting. I should definitely script more. I should start writing scripts for basically each and everything that I'm doing. And Honestly, I believe I do that not enough. I would love to write more scripts for doing specific tasks like connecting to APIs, executing stuff over the shell rather than just clicking stuff in a graphical user interface. And one tool that I absolutely love for this is Python. Python is, in my opinion, like the one of the best tools for scripting and automation. And I do so many things in Ansible right now, in Python right now. This is really amazing. So if you're like probably not a software developer in the traditional sense in IT, so you're not like a full-time developer, but you're an administrator, you're a security guy, you're a network guy, whatever it is, you should definitely learn Python. I know Network Chuck once did a video, you must learn Python right now. But he was actually true. It was right. Yeah, because Python is such a great programming language. It's actually more a scripting language, but it's so incredibly useful because Python has so many advanced features of advanced programming languages like classes, types, variable types, and all those things. So you can do so many great stuff. It also has advanced frameworks for doing things. Like if you want to program a small CLI tool, there's a Python library for that. You can write your own CLI in Python with just a few lines of code. It's super simple, but it's very, very flexible. And I would love to do more stuff with Python, but I know this is not really the direction where my channel wants to be. So I'm not really sure. Maybe we'll cover some Python here and there, but it should not be like a main focus on of this channel because I'm not really a Python expert. But my knowledge is absolutely enough to write some automation stuff. It is so easy and simple in Python to write a small script that, for example, just connects to an API and executes a bunch of different tasks or executes like a request. And when the response from the server comes back, taking this into a JSON object and doing some logic with it, executing another command. Python is just amazing for that. And you can do so much great stuff in IT just with Python. So that is definitely great. I also know a lot of people like Bash. Or shell scripts for like doing automated stuff in IT. But I personally, I'm not the biggest fan of shell scripts or bash because I think it's like there are like things you want to do in shell scripts, things like if-else statements or variable types or like working with HTTP requests and those type of things. Honestly, you can do that so much easier in Python, and it gives you many more capabilities of running a shell script. But I'm aware of a lot of people still love to write shell scripts, and it's also great for that. Yeah, Bika, just you say exactly the next item on my list. That is like, as a Windows admin, I do all that in PowerShell. Yes, obviously, PowerShell is the third like item on my list that I just wanted to get into. Honestly, I'm a PowerShell noob. I know nothing about PowerShell. I don't know how to use it. I mean, I probably know how to copy and paste some commands I can find online. Well, but that's not really a PowerShell scripting, right? But you can literally do so many great things in PowerShell. I've seen some amazing stuff from other people. And I know it's a very sophisticated scripting language, even though it comes from Microsoft. But PowerShell is really cool. And it works on Linux too. So, by the way, a lot of people don't know that, but you can actually execute PowerShell on Linux or Mac as well. It's really nice. But obviously, it's more like familiar or well-known in the Windows world. And yeah, but I think like for me personally, it doesn't make much sense to go into details with PowerShell, but as a Windows admin, I believe you can do so many great things in PowerShell, execute like and automate all these boring tasks like creating users in an Active Directory, configuring Windows servers, and all that stuff. Just like in the beginning, we talked about that shit that you do as a sysadmin, and it is most likely Windows based. So PowerShell, that's your friend. All right. Yeah, honestly, I believe Python is just great. I don't know. Yeah, honestly, I'm not a biggest fan of any other programming language because they are mostly too complicated for me. Python is just whatever. Why I prefer Python over any other programming language when it comes to scripting is like for Python, you can be sure like for Python you will almost always find something online. So when there is a problem that you're trying to solve and you're not a programmer, you're not a developer, you don't have much time, you just want to have an easy and simple answer how to do stuff in a scripted way, Python is your friend. You will always find something in Python. And that's why I believe this is probably the best start for automating stuff in a scripted way. But yeah, that's it about me. Of course, Python has its flaws and its problems. I know, especially about versioning and pip and yeah, let's not get into the details here. But yeah, that's I'm a Python fan. All right. Good. So that's it about scripting. Like doing repetitive tasks, executing simple actions based on a script. Like also like doing like input-output stuff. If-else statements. You can do many advanced things as well. But let's get into configuration management. It's like, what do you do for configuring IT environment? And when we talk about Homelabs, that's most likely like installing packages on a server, for example. Of course, you can simply just do that manually, but I would still think like updating packages in an automated way can be sometimes important. As I said, I'm doing a lot of things with Ansible. Ansible is really like my favorite tool when it comes to configuration management. I know there are some alternatives around like Chef, Puppet, and SaltStack, but honestly, I never really looked at those because Ansible did like everything that I wanted to do. And yeah, it's really a simple and easy tool to use. You can run it on your local workstation. You can also integrate it with other tools like we just talked about Semaphore, which is, in my opinion, an easy and simple way to orchestrate Ansible playbooks. Really cool. I've done a video about it, so if you want to check it out, look for Ansible Semaphore. It's really amazing, and that allows you to do all sorts of configuration tasks. Yeah, so. What is that? Yeah, just like I said, installing stuff, setting specific variables in a configuration file, and so on. But the cool thing about Ansible is, and that is probably the most powerful reason why you should use Ansible instead of writing your own Python script is, for example, if you want to set a specific variable somewhere in a configuration file, yeah, or if you want to make sure a package is installed on a Linux server. If you want to automate that with a script, you would first need to connect to this server or to this remote environment. You would have to first do some checks. So is that package already installed? And if it is already installed, then you probably don't need to install it again, right? And this is really the power of Ansible, as it can check whether those automation tasks actually have to be executed or not. So it figures it out on its own. You don't need to take care about is that package already installed or not. You don't define instructions. You define states, right? So you can say, like, I want this package to be present on that remote server, and I don't care about if you need to install that or what distribution it is, or Ansible, do it on your own, figure it out yourself, right? And Ansible takes care of doing all the necessary tasks that your state that you have defined in your Ansible playbooks is actually happening on the infrastructure or on the machine. And that simplifies so many different things. We just talked about packages, but think that one step further. Yeah, for example, think about specific variables in a text file or in a configuration setting or something like that. Just know how complicated it sometimes can be to figure out if a configuration setting is already set on a server, or maybe it is set but it's located in a different file because that server has a different application version or whatsoever. With a Python script or shell script, it would be sometimes really difficult to tackle those things. And with Ansible, you can really automate or define all the states that you want to do, and yeah, define that. Yeah, Volker, you are absolutely right. So Ansible is using Python under the hood. That is right. But the good thing is, in Ansible, you actually don't have to take care about all these lower layers, or how it's actually executing stuff on your infrastructure, or how it's connecting to it, and so on. It's all like abstracted for you. So you're operating on a much higher layer of defining things, and it's making it simpler, and it also makes it easy to have a consistency of all the different things that you want to be set and present on your server. And it's really simple and easy consumable. Like, you define this just in a simple YAML file, and Ansible takes care of doing all the necessary stuff on your machines that those configuration parameters match your environment. So I think Ansible is really an amazing tool, and you can use it for so many things, like configuration management, setting parameters, installing stuff. You can even use it for provisioning stuff, like provisioning new servers with a bunch of packages and configuration settings. It's really, really amazing. Yeah, so I haven't done much with any other configuration management tool. I know I just named a couple of alternatives, but for me personally, Ansible seems like the most commonly used tool when it comes to configuration management. All right. Let's talk about the next item on my list, which is infrastructure as code. So you probably have already guessed it. It's Terraform, and probably I'm more a Terraform fan than I'd be an Ansible fan, to be honest. So I really like Terraform more than Ansible. And not because, like, the one tool is better than the other. I just feel like Terraform actually serves most of the stuff that I want to automate on my Homelab. But actually, Terraform and Ansible do two different types of things. Just like I've said, the one tool is for configuration management or provisioning stuff. The other tool is infrastructure as code. And on paper, it might sound pretty similar. Like with Terraform, you can do things like you define all the states that you want to be present on your infrastructure in a simple file, and then Terraform is taking care of all the changes and things that it needs to do to make these changes happening on the server, right? And but it's like in my opinion, it has a different type of use case thing, because where Ansible is great when it comes to configuration management, it is not really great when it comes to installing new servers or deploying apps or doing like things, for example, installing a new server, or when you have a cloud environment, making sure that there is a specific resource created on that remote environment. For those type of things, Terraform is just better, because Terraform has this TF state file where it stores the actual state of your infrastructure. So it has some sort of history, and it keeps track of all the things and changes that it does. And that is absolutely great for automating stuff like, for example, I've automated my DNS server using Terraform. So for example, when I want to have a specific DNS record for and that happens a lot in my environment. So even though it's just a small home lab, I'm often testing things. I'm often installing new servers, or I'm often deploying new applications and containers. So I'm doing that almost on a day-to-day basis. And whenever I need a new DNS record for my new application or my new testing server, I can just use Terraform to automatically do that for me. Could I just go in a configuration file, add the IP address and the name, and reload the server? Sure, I could do that. But we will also see later that it serves a bunch of other different types of tasks. Like, it is not just great for setting or provisioning items, it's also great for destruction and life cycle of projects. And that is really what Terraform is really amazing. For example, if you're doing a new project and you need a bunch of different things for it. You need a DNS server, you need a DNS server, you need a new server, you need a new DNS record, you might also need a firewall rule, you might need a container deployment. So you have a list of things that you need, and you can define it in a Terraform file. Terraform makes sure that this is deployed on your server, and when you're done with this project, you want to get rid of all of this. It's one line command. It's really 2 instructions in Terraform to execute a Terraform destroy, and it will make all of this things that it has provisioned completely roll it back to they would have never been existed, right? So it's really amazing to manage life cycle of projects, and that's what I personally feel like Terraform is really amazing for. So really, when you're thinking about Terraform, of course, there are some similarities. You could do similar things in Ansible and Terraform sometimes, right? So for example, installing applications, deploying containers, you could do that in Terraform and Ansible as well. But it's more like, there, I believe it's up to you to define. So what tool you feel the most comfortable with and what fits better to your workflow. There are similarities, but also like a fundamentally different use case. But I can definitely see like there are scenarios where you could use Ansible and or Terraform both at the same time, or maybe just one or another. And it's ultimately it's up to you what you think like is the more useful thing. I personally love to use Terraform whenever it's possible. And when there's stuff that Terraform isn't great for, such as config management or so, then I use Ansible. That's how I personally do that. But yeah, I think Terraform is really amazing. By the way, one of the next projects that I want to do is fully automate my virtual machine deployment with Terraform. You probably know that I've done that already, and I made a video about it. There are some weird problems with the Terraform provider for Proxmox, actually. So I don't want to go into the details here, but there were some problems and issues with the Telmate project, and I really have no idea if that's sorted out already. I once had a chat with the main contributors on this project, and they wanted to fork this because Telmate, the organization where the GitHub repository stored, Telmate is, for whatever reason, doesn't have any developers or employees somehow affiliated with this project. So even though the Proxmox provider is somehow part of the organization account in GitHub, they don't have real administrator access. So they can contribute new code, they can release new versions, but they can't do fundamental changes to the Git repo because no one has access to the organization. So it's like, I don't know what the outcome was, if they managed this or if they figured out a way to actually sort this out and now get full access to the GitHub repo, or if they forked it. There are a few forks for this project existing for fixing small bugs and so on. It's really a long story. I don't know if we have time to go into it, but it's really like there are a lot of problems with this, and it's really annoying. Currently, I have a system that currently works for me, so I'm not aiming to change anything here. This is a hope for the best. But yeah, just make sure there are a few dependencies whenever you're upgrading to a new Proxmox version that you should take care of if that's really supported by your Proxmox Terraform provider. It's like, who knows? But I will keep you up to date. Maybe I'll make a new video about it at some point when there's some change happening. But as I believe right now, the old video tutorial for Terraform and Proxmox should still be valid even with the newer version, because they just recently added some new releases to the project. Anyway, right, so that's what I do a lot. I use Terraform to add new DNS records to my Homelab. I use it to quickly install new virtual machines for it, and so on. And that's really great because that actually saves me some time. Because I often do that in my Homelab. I often have that use case. And now the hours that I invested into learning Terraform, figuring out how this provider stuff works and so on, they now start to pay off, right? So now it's really easier for me to define a new DNS record in a Terraform file, execute it, and the same for any new virtual machine. But at the beginning, it was a pretty steep learning curve into figuring out the best way to do it, but now, after a few months, I would say, it finally starts paying off, because it's just such a great workflow for me right now. It's super simple to just copy and paste like the Terraform file for a new virtual machine from one of my templates. The same is true for the DNS records. And I'm also starting to extend this to other projects. Like, for example, I'm playing around with TwinGate, the remote access tool. And I know start to use the Terraform provider for TwinGate as well. I just recently figured out how to automate the entire remote access rules and policies in a Terraform file, which is super amazing and super simple. It's much better than I would have to go into TwinGate and add a new resource for all of my servers, because currently I have like 10, 12 different servers, and I would have to define a new resource for each of those 12 servers. It's much simpler to do it in Terraform right now. So even though this scalable or this scalability aspect of automation in a home lab might not be that relevant, for me, in some areas it makes sense, or it starts to making sense. So definitely I would say like Ansible, Terraform, and Python, yeah, those are the 3 essential tools that you just have to look at when it comes to automation in a home lab. And yeah, you will find a lot of great videos and content from me around those tools, and I will continue making more of it. Yeah, so some of the questions in the chat I just want to address. Actually, I like YAML. I don't know why. Like, which docxp says also YAML hell? You should take a look at Pulumi. Yeah, honestly, I like YAML, so there's nothing wrong with it. And the dual license thing, honestly, I don't want to get into this, right? It's not relevant for us Homelab people, so why should we care? It's like, for me personally, Terraform is still like the go-to tool that I use for infrastructure as code, and it's great. And I see no reason why I should switch it to an alternative when it does everything that I need, right? Yeah, that's my opinion about it. And also about, Steve says, is Castra a graphical user interface for Ansible? Not really. I mean, that would completely undersell the capabilities of Castra, to be honest. We will go into Castra. There's just one more thing that I need to address here, and that is CI/CD. So I haven't really done much with CI/CD. For example, there are CI/CD tools around, like Argo CD is what I've used, and GitHub Actions. So I think GitHub Actions is probably one thing where I feel, look, this is probably the most valuable automation tool when it comes to Git repositories. And that also gives you a bunch of other interesting capabilities. For example, I just talked about automating my DNS records in Terraform, or my Proxmox virtual machines. Of course, you somehow need to store those Terraform files somewhere in a Git repository. I mean, where else should you store it? On your local hard drive with no backup? Of course not, right? So that's why you should definitely use a Git repository. Now you can combine this and do some really amazing things. For example, although Terraform is an automation tool, and Ansible is, by the way, the same workflow, you just have to execute them locally. So when you defined all that stuff in your playbook and you just want to execute the changes, you still need to run it on your local workstation. Now, with GitHub Actions, you can do all that stuff fully automatic, right? You can do so many cool things. Like, for example, if you change something in a Terraform file and push it to GitHub, then you execute a GitHub action that automatically clones this Terraform file and execute it on your workstation. That is what I've done, and it's super simple to do all those things automatically. Really nice. And so I definitely would pay attention to GitHub Actions. Really cool. Yeah, it's really, for me personally, that saves me a bunch of time. Probably not so much that you would think, but it's really, for me, the workflow is easier. I don't have to think about when I need a new DNS record. Okay, so I need to go on the server, I need to type it in, I need to reload the server, I need to restart it. That's all done automatically. So I don't need to think about it. I just need to enter the IP address and the name in a file, push it, and then all the executional stuff is automatically done without any action from me. So that's really where I feel this is the most benefit for me personally. Yeah, and that is what you can do with so many other tools. Like, you could use it in combination with Ansible, with Terraform. One tool, and yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail here on Castra, because Castra for me is really like when I think about Castra, if you've watched this video, and a bunch of people have asked this, so if you have all these different automation tools like Python, Bash, PowerShell, Ansible, Terraform, GitHub Actions, CI/CD, how do you combine all of that stuff? And for me personally, Castra is the answer to that. It's really, for me, Castra is a tool. I've once did a video about it, and some would call it an automation tool, but it's not really an automation tool for me. Castra is more an orchestration platform for automation tools, right? So in Castra, you can define some flows that will execute a bunch of different things. Like, for example, and I will show you that in the videos. Don't worry about it. We will not go into much detail here, but in an upcoming video, I will show you how you can automate Ansible and Terraform both with Castra flows. And Castra flow allows you to do some really cool things like webhooks. It allows you to do triggered schedules and all of that stuff. It's really amazing. So that will be a huge topic of the future videos. And I'm pretty sure I will do a bunch of videos about those automation tasks, because whenever I'm playing around with Terraform or Ansible, I need a way to automatically execute those changes and connect it to my Git repositories with webhook, or maybe I want to send a Discord message when an automation job successfully executed or something like that. So this is where I'm currently starting to use Castra more and more, and I'm really investing a lot of time into finding out how this tool works and how you can orchestrate all those different automation tools with in combination with each other. So that will be a huge topic for an upcoming video. I don't know if you have watched it, but you should definitely pay attention to it. It's really a nice tool that will combine all of that stuff. But yeah, if we come back to that question, I gave you some great examples how you can do automation stuff. I don't know if you have enough input to make a decision for yourself. So should I go and automate everything in my home lab, or should I just avoid it? I would definitely say it's a balance act, right? So for me personally, I have a lot of stuff that I love to automate. DNS entries, creating virtual machines, provisioning stuff like my remote access, and maybe even Docker deployments in the future. I've written some cool Ansible playbooks in combination with Castra. We'll show you that in a video. How to upgrade my Docker compose files on my remote servers when there is a new version coming out, for example. So there is a lot of great stuff that you can do, and it's super exciting to play around with this. And I believe, and I think it's probably, for me, the outcome is not really to save more time in a home lab. But I can definitely tell you from my own experience, the more you get into these automation tools, the more you play around with CI/CD, Python, Terraform, Ansible, the more sophisticated you get when it comes to developer processes. And that ultimately helps you so much in IT when you want to understand advanced concepts. Like when I'm talking with my product managers or my developer teams about things, and they throw out terms like Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, Ansible, blah, 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 you understand the language that these guys are speaking. And for me personally, this is probably the most beneficial aspect when it comes to playing around with automation in my home lab, because I've done so much with this, playing around with it. I understand the language of DevOps people and DevOps engineers, and I'm slowly getting more and more into this world. And yeah, that's really helping me in my main job to really get in a different role, like, and doing some more advanced stuff in IT. That's what I can say. So it's definitely worth it, even though you're not just saving time in your home lab here and there. Of course, there are some limitations what you can do or should do with automation in your home lab. But ultimately, it just makes you more skilled in IT. And it just makes a lot of fun. So that's the whole reason why I'm doing it. And it hopefully should answer the question that you guys might have. If you think it's worth automating stuff in IT or not, it definitely makes you much more skilled when it comes to DevOps processes or advanced jobs in IT, when those guys speak all these different languages and terms, and you get a better understanding for that. Yeah, similar to when people talk about containerization and you play around with Docker, Podman, Kubernetes in your home lab, you start getting into the way of thinking, right? That's the biggest outcome for me personally. All right, I want to address some of the questions and feedback in the chat. So let me just go through some of that stuff. Would you combine GitHub Actions with Ansible for deployment? Well, it really depends. Yeah. So I personally, as I said, I would say for deployment things, I would still try to use Terraform. When it comes to provisioning, you can use Ansible. So, for example, just like to make it more practical, a GitHub action should, in a GitHub action or in an automated flow, you want to install a new server and want to install a bunch of applications and configure stuff on it. Then I would use Terraform to install the server. And then later, when the server is installed, I would use Ansible to run a provisioning script that does all the configuration and configuration part for what is needed on the machine. That's how I personally would use it. It's really weird. So sometimes you're completely off topic, right? So some people talk about like Raspberry Pi, some others talk about Warp Terminal again. Oh no, I'm not getting into this discussion, honestly. Thoughts on Open Tofu? Well, yeah, that's another topic that I aim to avoid. But yeah, I already feel like when there's such a big change happening, I mean, it happened to Terraform a while ago. Then it happened to what was the last app that changed its license? I think it was Redis, right? It was Redis. Yeah, I think like the whole tech community is getting crazy, running around for like 2 or 3 weeks, and after that, like it's like a topic that okay, we're now clear on it. Either like people didn't care at all, so they just continue using the app as it is today, which would be me, for example, because I don't care about license changes when it doesn't affect me personally. And some others might have adopted alternatives or forks of those projects. For example, I believe like Redis, I don't know some of the alternatives, but I know there are alternative programs or projects from Amazon. There's something that is compatible with Redis, but it's under a different project license whatsoever. The same is with OpenTofu and Terraform. So when HashiCorp changed their license, some people forked the current state of the project and made OpenTofu, which is like similar to Terraform. But of course, it does mean that at some point this project could differentiate from the original project, meaning like new features could not be implemented and so on. We'll see what comes up with. So personally, I don't see a reason why I should switch to OpenTofu right now, because Terraform still has a free plan. It's still like available for me as a Homelab guy, so why should I care? But yeah, I mean, like in certain areas in business and industry, those license changes might have a pretty huge impact. So I can understand why people use a different app when license changes would make it impossible for them to run their business. Okay. But for me, as Homelab people, I think we should not care too much about this. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my opinion, right? So, I mean, we are not like creating a new product that uses Terraform. By the way, we will get into Talos Linux at some point. Honestly, for me, Talos Linux, and this is really like another complicated thing that I need to understand. Currently, I'm trying to review Omni in combination with Talos. And it's actually, deploying Omni is kind of the most difficult part. Running it seems to be very simple, but I still don't trust if it's reliable or not. So I'm still like trying to review, trying to find problems with this platform until I adopt it. But I'm pretty sure for my personal Homelab, I will use like the cloud version of Omni. I mean, it's like $10 a month or so. For everybody doesn't understand what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. There will be video about it at some point when I'm done with my research. But yeah, that's another interesting topic that I want to get into. But I still feel like there's so much more that I need to look up in terms of Talos Linux and what I need to read about it. It seems pretty straightforward at a high level, but if you get into the details, it's getting complicated as hell. So at least for me personally, I don't know. Servus Christian, Grüße aus Wien. Hey, Harry. Greetings. Sounds like you could Windows admin. What? All right. Yeah, I'm getting distracted by some of the chat, but anyway, I mean it's interesting. One thing I wanted to ask before the end of this live stream, or I wanted to highlight, because currently, and honestly, this I just wanted to talk about automation because it was one of the projects. It was affiliated to one of the projects that I've done with Castra just recently, and I played around with Terraform and Ansible a lot. But I'm really interested in any new suggestions for topics for future live streams. So I think we could probably just do, I mean, if you don't come up with any suggestions, I will just come up with an idea for live stream and do it. But if you have any ideas what we should talk about or what we need to talk about in a live stream, then it would be really amazing if you just could add this as a message in one of our Discord chat, or if you can send me a DM in Discord about some ideas you have, because I think that would be really amazing to find some cool ideas for live streams. Now, I don't want to make it such about, like, for example, like Semaphore. That would be more like worth a video. It would be more like a general discussion. For example, like discussing automation in a home lab. We could also talk about things like, I think once I done a live stream about security in a home lab and about home lab planning. We could also talk about networking or about backups, about like anything you could think about, and prepare an interesting talk if you want. But it's like I probably should do a list of all the items that I want to discuss with you guys. And if it's a topic worth a 1 hour talk, that might be worth taking a look. Live stream topic example, create a home lab in Azure. Oh my god. I mean, then we would need to get into a completely different discussion. I mean, I probably have I discussed that once in one of the earlier live streams, is cloud really a home lab? I mean, that would be the type of discussion that I would definitely go into. But yeah. Anyway, I mean, if you have some ideas, please send me a message on Discord, and I definitely will consider doing upcoming live stream episodes about those. That would be really amazing. But anyway, for me, today I'm done with it. So I'm sorry, today I'm really a terrible moderator here. But anyways, like this, I never really planned this, like a podcast or anything. Like it more a bit, yeah, just a bit more relaxed and stuff, right? But how about creating a list of topics for a Patreon and then do a pudding or something? That's actually a great idea, Logan. That's probably the best idea. I couldn't have come up with a better one. So that's a good one. I'll do that. I create a list of topics, and you can vote for what's the next. And I will do any of those on the list, maybe, or maybe not. And from time to time, I'll switch them around. And how about that? You guys can vote on Patreon. And again, not just the paid members. Again, as I said at the beginning, we have a free tier, so you can just join, vote for your most favorite topic, and then we discuss it in a live stream. That's a great one. So I prepare a list of topics for like the next week or maybe in 2 weeks, and I see you on Patreon, and then we can find out what's the next topic. Cool. Okay, guys, so thank you so much. It was a lot of fun today, and yeah, let's do that. Thanks for the great idea. Okay, guys, so I'll take care of my family. I will have to eat something, and yeah, By the way, I'm still like working on the new room for my son. I need to finish the floor, which is just annoying. I mean, I had put the wallpapers on the wall, and it was so much work. And so the next like 1 or 2 weeks will be really terrible for me. But yeah, once that is done, I'll probably give you an update in the future live streams. Okay, guys. So my son is 6 years, so he's going to school this summer. So that's why I wanted to make or change the room for him to yeah. He's not a baby anymore. He's growing up, so I need to change a couple of things there. Yeah, maybe I'll show you some updates here and there on Discord, so it would be nice. Yeah. Yeah, Tapetewechsel, yeah, oh god. Yeah, I've already done that, so it's now floor is yeah, the next item. Okay, guys. Oh, I have to go. Thank you so much. It was a really great live stream. And I see you on Patreon. I see you on Discord. And in 2 weeks, there will be the next episode. Thank you guys so much. Take care. See you. Bye-bye.